Welcome everyone, and thank you for tuning in. This is the account with a short summary for the days 401, 402, and 403 of the war in Ukraine. Before we start, please let me introduce the reason as to why I was not able to make any reports over the weekend. My daughter was born on April 1st at 12:47 a.m. She is a little small with 2,790 grams or 6.1 pounds, but both her and her mother are well, just a bit tired and exhausted. And now let's start the quick summary for day 401. The main update for this day was the anniversary of the liberation of Bucha. Several European leaders traveled to Ukraine to take part in the commemoration. The President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, honored the memory of Bucha residents killed during the occupation. The ceremony took place near the Church of the Holy Apostle Andrew I called and All Saints in Bucha. About 50 states and international organizations signed the Bucha Declaration on Russia's accountability for crimes committed in Ukraine. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen stated that the executions committed in Bucha were part of Russia's plan to eliminate Ukrainians and their identity. According to the Prosecutor General of Ukraine, Andriy Kostin, Russia committed at least 9,000 war crimes during the 33 days of occupation in Bucha. President Zelensky stated during a briefing in Bucha that Putin's plan to deploy nuclear weapons in Belarus would suggest the meeting between Putin and Xi did not yield the Kremlin's desired results. The Ministry of Culture and Information Policy Commission for Accepting and Transferring of State Property of the Kyiv Pechersk Lavra was again blocked from entering the monastery to conduct an inspection. The Air Force of Ukraine has confirmed that Ukrainian aircraft now deploy Western-made Joint Direct Attack Munitions, JDAMs, smart guidance kits that convert unguided bombs into precision-guided munitions. The President of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, claimed during his speech to the Belarusian people and the National Assembly that NATO is planning to invade Belarus and that Russia could place nuclear weapons in the country if necessary. The ambassador of Ukraine to the US reported that a bipartisan group of US senators has introduced a draft law on security in the Black Sea region. Pentagon spokesperson Patriot said that 65 Ukrainian soldiers completed training on Patriot air defense systems at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and returned to Europe. The UK Ministry of Defence Intelligence update assessed the situation regarding counter-battery radars and efforts by both sides to neutralize the opponents. The main headlines for the assessment by the Institute for the Study of War were: Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a decree on March 30th authorizing Russia's semi-annual spring conscription, which will induct 147,000 Russians between April 1st and July 15th. Putin remains unlikely to deploy newly conscripted troops to participate in combat in Ukraine due to concerns for the stability of his regime. The start of the new conscription period, even with a slightly increased number of conscripts, may actually reduce Russian training capacity for reservists and other personnel recruited via crypto mobilization campaigns. Russian President Vladimir Putin appointed a prominent mill blogger and Russian proxy battalion commander as a regional Russian National Guard Rosgvardia official for occupied Donetsk Oblast, advancing several Kremlin efforts. Western officials reported that Wagner Group and conventional Russian forces have likely lost a substantial amount of manpower in the Bakhmut area, which will further constrain Russia's offensive on Bakhmut. The Russian Federal Security Service, FSB, arrested Wall Street Journal correspondent Ivan Gershkovich in Yekaterinburg, Sverdlovsk Oblast on charges of espionage on March 30th. Ukrainian National Security Defense Council Secretary Oleksiy Danilov stated on March 30th that Ukrainian authorities do not intend to expel the Kremlin-affiliated Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate from the Kyiv Pechersk Lavra by force. Moving on to the summary for day 402. Metropolitan Pavlo, the abbot of the Kyiv Pechersk Lavra, has been served with a notice of suspicion in the morning of April 1st. He also stated that his home was being searched by law enforcement officers. Subsequently, the Metropolitan was summoned for interrogation. The notice of suspicion issued by the Security Service of Ukraine was revealed to have been for inciting interreligious hatred and justifying Russia's armed aggression. Metropolitan Pavlo, however, categorically denied the accusation, saying he was against aggression, but did not mention Russia as the perpetrator. Later, the court hearing was postponed until Monday as Metropolitan Pavlo was not feeling well due to his blood sugar level. The court, however, still issued a 60-day house arrest for the Metropolitan. The Prime Minister of Poland stated that Ukraine will purchase 100 modern Rosomak armored personnel carriers from his country. Russia has assumed the rotating presidency of the UN Security Council for the month of April. The Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu stated that necessary measures are being taken to increase the Russian army's ammunition stocks for its war against Ukraine. The main message of the UK Ministry of Defense intelligence update was that plans of the Russian military command to expand the territories under its control in Donbas during the winter offensive failed, and there is a realistic possibility that Chief of the Russian General Staff, General Valery Gerasimov, is pushing the limits of how far Russia's political leadership will tolerate failure. The main headlines for the assessment by the Institute for the Study of War were: Russian President Vladimir Putin approved a new Russian foreign policy concept on March 31st that likely aims to support the Kremlin's attempts to promote a potential anti-Western coalition. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko continues to use high-profile public statements to portray Belarus as a sovereign state despite its current de facto occupation by Russian forces. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov promptly rejected Lukashenko's suggestion of a ceasefire and indicated that the Kremlin is not interested in serious negotiations. Russian Security Council Deputy Chairman Dmitry Medvedev leveraged comments about sending peacekeeping forces to Ukraine to continue information operations that portray the West as escalatory. And finally, the summary for day 403. April 2nd was the anniversary of the Kyiv Oblast liberation from Russian occupation. During the liberation of Kyiv Oblast, Ukrainian defenders decimated an elite Russian landing force at Hostomel. The Armenian authorities have promised not to extradite Russian President Vladimir Putin to The Hague. Explosions were reported in Mariupol and Melitopol. Vladlen Tatarsky, a Russian war correspondent or military blogger, has been killed in an explosion in a cafe in central St. Petersburg that formerly belonged to Yevgeny Prigozhin, the head of the Wagner PMC. 16 people were injured. Russia attacked Kostiantynivka in eastern Donetsk Oblast with missiles, killing at least 6 civilians and injuring 8. Igor Girkin and other propagandists have created the Club of Angry Patriots and published a manifesto. Girkin also stated, "I'm not afraid to say that we are heading towards military defeat." After collaborators were killed in Mariupol by partisans, Russian authorities have started a mop-up operation in the city. The intelligence update for April the 2nd takes a look at Russian casualties by non-combat causes. The main headlines for the assessment by the Institute for the Study of War were: Russian, Ukrainian and Western sources observed on April 1st that the Russian winter offensive has failed to achieve the Kremlin's goals of seizing the Donetsk and Luhansk Oblast administrative borders by March 31st. Growing Russian speculation about Russian military command changes likely indicates that Russia may soon reshuffle its senior military command due to the failed winter offensive. And that wraps up the summaries. Should you be interested in details, you can find links to every article I mention in the description. If you enjoyed the report and found it informative, please consider sharing it with others and giving me a like. I'm not sure I can record a full report tomorrow, however, I will at least have a summary ready. Thank you for tuning in and have a great day. You were listening to The Account. Slava Ukraini.